Hello, happy Friday, July 25th. We are still in the new moon energy. The new moon was yesterday at 3:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 2 degrees Leo. I wanted to talk about this new moon because to me it feels pretty significant for a few reasons. So let's talk about those reasons. And I'd be really curious to hear from you if you would like to share in the comments anything that's been coming up for you around the new moon. There seems to be definitely some surprises and elements coming in for people this week. So the new moon, just as a reminder of what a new moon is, every month we get to have a new moon. I actually had a new moon circle ceremony last night. And I was just sharing how really every sun season we have a new moon. And sometimes there's two new moons in that season, depending on how things fall. But basically right now we have the sun that moved into Leo on the 22nd, so just a few days ago. And then the moon was coming, from behind and met up with the sun at 2 degrees of Leo yesterday at that time, 3 o'clock. And so when we have a new moon, we are putting seeds in the ground, so to speak, or our intentions are being set. So what is it we are looking to manifest or bring in or create in our lives? The new moon is a time when you can put those intentions and the seeds in the ground, and then we spend every day watering and nurturing those seeds and helping them grow. Ideally, we tend to look at it as there's a 28-day moon cycle. So the new moon was yesterday. The full moon will be in 2 weeks, and then we'll be back to another new moon 2 weeks later. So 28 days. And so that's one way we may want to hope to see some movement in whatever we set the intentions around within that moon cycle. But a lot of the times the major fruition will come in the full moon of that sign, which is 6 months later. So as an example, later this month, we're going to have a full moon in Aquarius. The new moon, we set intentions in Aquarius season. This is the time to take a look back and say, wait, did those come true? It's about 6 months to a bit of a fuller expression of it, or more time really for us to build that thing. So when we talk about what types of intentions we're putting, down, and the big thing with new moons is the best practices is pen to paper, not typing or, speaking into something. Actually get a pen and paper and write down what your intentions are. Usually anywhere between 3 and 10 intentions. 10's a bit much, but up to that. And you want to stick with one area of your life. And it could be an area that you've been working on. And if for instance, like you did this ritual last month and you've seen no movement, do those intentions again, like keep it focused. When you do any intention setting, you want to focus on one area versus multiple areas. You don't want to dilute the potent energy and rather put it into the thing that you're really working on. So that's a big thing. You want to be making intentions on behalf of yourself, not another person. You can have intentions around your relationships, but it can't be specific to a person. And I recommend keeping these. This is, in the full moon, we tend to burn things and fires and things like that. But on the new moon, I actually think it's a great idea to be putting these intentions into a journal or something that you reference, or keep for yourself and that you could look back on. You would date it, which new moon it was, as well as then the intentions. So as an example, we are in Leo season. So what is Leo all about? Well, it is the fun sign. It loves love, like flirtatious love. It's a very heart-centered sign. It does like to be the center of attention. It loves being on stage because it is the sign that likes to be fully self-expressed. Leo is ruled by the sun. And the sun in astrology represents our identity, our egos, our personalities, who we know ourselves to be. So with this new moon, it is about a new opportunity about how we express ourselves. And I believe this is very connected to this new world we're walking into. Why am I saying new world? Because every single outer planet since November of last year has changed signs. This is very unprecedented. This doesn't happen typically. And I like to think of it, as I said last night, it's almost like if we were in a theater, someone took down all of the 3 walls of the theater and they're putting up new sets. and we're sitting in the audience going, what's going on? That's kind of what's going on in the world right now. Is like we can tell something big is happening and shifting and changing, and the way that we used to do things won't work anymore or won't make sense. But it's not like we've been shown all like the way to move forward. That is why I think things like new moon, full moons, the solstices, the equinoxes, these moments in time that we kind of pause and reflect and see how to sort of like look at the bigger picture in bite-sized pieces. So, so as an example, let's talk a little bit about those outer planets. In November of last year, Pluto changed signs, Capricorn into Aquarius. So it is now at the early degrees of Aquarius. It's technically retrograding right now. It's going back from 2 degrees, to 0, but it will stay in Aquarius. It will never go back to Capricorn while we're alive, unless we start living past a couple hundred years. Neptune, the next furthest out sign, moved into Aries on March 30th of this year. That was a big deal. It can take, 14, 16 years for it to change signs. So it did it within 5 months of Pluto changing signs. 2 months later, Saturn, which is a transpersonal planet, because it's a bit more personal to us. These outer planets are more generational because they don't move very fast. So, for instance, Pluto being in a sign for 20 years will identify a generation of people where Pluto is. And then these little subgroups with Neptune and Uranus. But Saturn will go around the entire zodiac every 30 years. So we have our Saturn return at 28, 29, 30 years old. Again, 58, 59, 60 years old. And if we make it into our late 80s, early 90s, that would be another Saturn return. But Saturn moved into Aries. It doesn't particularly like being in Aries because Saturn likes to hold things back and teach us things. But it's in the sign that's a bit compulsive and wants to get things started and wants to move. So it's a little bit of a push and pull relationship when Saturn is there, and it's going to be there for 2.5 years. But I think that is helpful because it's sitting there with Neptune. Neptune also moved into Aries. Any sign or planet that moves into Aries is having a new cycle begin. Why? Because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So those two came in basically together. Saturn moved May 24th, 2 months after Neptune. So now they're sitting together, not exact, but very close in the very early degrees of Aries. So we got Pluto at the early degrees of Aquarius. We have Saturn and Neptune at the early degrees of Aries. Then we have Uranus, who just changed signs on July 7th, less than a couple weeks ago. Or a couple weeks ago exactly. And it went from Taurus, an earth sign, into an air sign, Gemini. So now Pluto and Uranus are in air signs, which is a very, very big deal after being in earth signs. But what I'm getting at is every single one of these planets, and even Jupiter, which is also a transpersonal planet, like Saturn, because it moves quicker, so it's a bit more personal to us. It moves into a new sign every year. It moved into Cancer, and that is the sign that it loves to be in. So I believe that Jupiter is protecting us right now with that nurturing, mothering, protective energy of Cancer, while we are taking down the stage and reconstructing the new one for the dream that we are looking to manifest or actualize in this lifetime. So I'm saying or emphasizing these early degrees because this new moon was at 2 degrees. So what was it doing? It was opposing Pluto at 2 degrees Aquarius. It was trining Neptune and Saturn over in Aries. It is sextiling Uranus. Now, what does that all mean? An opposition, so Pluto and the new moon. I will just say that Pluto can kind of be a bit obsessive, so I don't know if you've had any of that sort of like obsessive nature kind of come up in the last 24, 48 hours. But it's there for death, rebirth, transformation, and healing, and the truth. So to me, I believe Pluto is trying to help with this new moon for us to release anybody that is not allowing us to step into our new world. Who's holding us back? It's time to either transform that relationship or transform yourself and the ability to let that person go if they're not meant to move forward with you. Neptune and Saturn together feels like creating structures for the new dream. That's what Neptune's about, the dream world, idealism, the divine love. Saturn is mastery and structures and building something, leaving a legacy. So to me, they're working in tandem right now to identify the dream we want to actualize and construct. Neptune is boundaryless. Saturn just wants to create boundaries. So they are, I think, working well together in that way for our dreams. But we have to be very clear about what are we dreaming? What are we wanting? Then we have Uranus in a sextile with the new moon, which means it's 2 signs away. So we have this new moon in Leo, you skip Cancer, and you go to Gemini. That is, again, what we would call an opportunity. There's an opportunity being presented to you to help you with what you're doing here, letting go of people, harmonizing with Saturn and Neptune to actualize your dream. Well, did an opportunity just come in that's very Gemini in nature? A friend, a network of people? Are people asking you questions that are helping you get clear about what are the direction you want to go in? So all of these outer planets were helping or involved with this new moon. So to me, because this is the first new moon since all of the outer planets have changed signs, it feels like this is a moment of launch. This is, who do you want to be? What role do you want to play in this new world? This new world is going to require us to show up differently. It's going to require us to show up authentically. So who is the authentic you? That's what Pluto opposing the new moon is asking. Authenticity, truth. That's who gets to stay. People who are aligned. Those who are not, let them go, because they're weighing you down and creating some burden like energy on your process. The trine is harmonious with Saturn and Neptune. So it says this new moon is working in tandem with you, helping you create that new dream. Uranus is giving you opportunities that may kind of come in and out of left field. But what is Leo about? Self-expression, living from the heart, protecting our families. It's about children. It's protecting children. That's what Leo's about. Think of the lion that takes care of its pride. It is quite literally a protector that way. They're very royal in nature. They've got this regal lions, this regal attitude that comes with them. So that's Leo. It's like, I'm getting on the stage and I will say what I say confidently, boldly, courageously. That's what's being asked with this new moon. But there's something else that's happening. Retrogrades. So Pluto, as I said, was already retrograding. Neptune is retrograding. Saturn is retrograding. And soon to be Chiron, who's also in Aries with Saturn and Neptune, will be retrograding at, next week on the 30th. So there is this retrograde action going on in the sky, but we also have Mercury retrograding, and not only in any sign, but in Leo, the sign of the new moon. So this is Mercury saying like, hey, I'm going to slow you down and I'm going to get you up to speed about what's going on here. I'm the messenger. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to articulate this. So that Mercury retrograde, which a lot of people will give it a bad rep, I think is slowing us down to help us identify, what this new world is about and, communicate what is going to be needed. What are we going to be desiring inside of it that we need to start turning our attention to? And, working from that place. Like, I think it's super important for us to, realize this new world energy, because if we can acknowledge that, it's different than like resisting what's trying to change. Doing that, it takes a lot of energy. Going with the flow of what's presenting itself to you and you reacting to it to say yes or no, does this align with the future or not? That's how I would look at it. And generally speaking, when we talk about this being the age of Aquarius, that's where Pluto moved into for these next 20 years. It's going to be in Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, the planet of freedom and liberation. So that's how I am making decisions for myself. Is this going to bring me more liberation, freedom, or am I going to feel trapped? If it's that, then it's a no. If it's freedom and liberation, it's a yes. Getting really simplified in these ways is going to help you in your decision-making process when things feel confusing, because that's what Neptune does. It's blowing, clouds and fog around you, so it's hard to see through because it likes you in the dream world. It wants you to imagine and bring something in. That's why Saturn being there is helpful and constructing something and putting structures around whatever this dream is so that it can actually come into being. If we don't have something to structure it, it's just sort of floating out in space. So Mercury retrograding in Leo, where the new moon just happened yesterday, feels like it's trying to whisper in your ear, what is your authentic self-expression? What is the heart-centered mission you really want to, be on in this life for the rest of your life? And particularly, what requires courage and boldness within you, but you feel so passionate about it? Like, this is the moment to launch us into this. I'll give you an example from my life, doing the new moon ceremonies. You know how many times people have asked me to do these, just facilitating, events or groups of people together. I mean, years I've been asked. I used to be a yoga teacher. I've taught, and I have, spoken in front of groups like at different points in my life. But I've never prioritized doing these sort of rituals related to the moon or astrology in general. And last week, I ended up being invited into a person who just opened a new wellness center, 25 minutes from where I am here. We got on a call. We hit it off, very aligned. She said, why don't you come by? I went by that night. I checked out the studio. She's like, do you want to do a new moon ceremony next week? It was very last minute. There was not a ton of prep and planning. And all of that would have, I'm telling you, all of those things are what would have had me not do it. It was because it was last minute, there wasn't a lot of time to prep. And the truth is, when it comes to astrology, I don't need to prep. It's something that I channel in and I intuit, and I have a very close relationship with it. It would be like talking about your favorite thing. I don't need to prep about that. I love talking about astrology. And so not only did that happen, but a very good friend, unexpectedly, Uranus came into town, unfortunately, because of a death in the family. But then I met their family, and their family has this amazing climbing gym, not too far from here. And when she was hearing me talk about charts and astrology, she was like, can we have you come and talk to our members and this and that? So all of a sudden, these opportunities to get me in front of people speaking and expressing myself, Leo, started showing themselves. The opportunities were thanks to Uranus. The opposition with Pluto, which we're all kind of, feeling, anything that comes through Leo, which there's been a couple things like Mercury, it was opposing Pluto already. Anything that's coming through that sign is going to be having a face-off with anything in Aquarius like Pluto. The Neptune and Saturn trine for me feels like I said, very helpful. I'm ruled by Saturn. So it being with this dreamy planet feels like it's helping me get into my dream world and start articulating what it is I want to do. And when I'm in front of a group of people and speaking, I can't tell you how inside my body and solid I feel. I feel so connected to who I am, to what sources me, to what I'm talking about, to the people in the room, making all eye contact with a group of people. And then more than that, what I love about these things is the opportunity for everybody to meet each other, over a topic that they all are interested in. So we wrap up the new moon ceremony, and so the person who owns the studio is like, you can do this every month. You can do it. If you want to do another workshop, what do you want to do? The roads are opening up for me in that regard. But I had to show up. I had to say yes. I had to, allow myself to flow with this. And I also had to face some fears of mine that maybe I would get in front of this group and screw up, or it wouldn't be good, or it was something even worse would be that I didn't enjoy it, which I just don't ever imagine that being the case when it comes to anything astrology related. But I'm just giving you an example. So for me, where did this new moon go off? In my 8th house of resources through other people. So one of the things I had been struggling with as an example around this time was, do I reopen my private practice and start seeing people in person again? And all these funny, weird things kept happening. I got locked out of the building, things got canceled. A lot of weird things just kept happening. And when that happens, I listen and I pay attention. I don't ignore that. I don't push and force things. And then these opportunities showed up. And so what's become clear to me is that right now, where I'm wanted, or where, my soul wants me to be focused, is out in the world in communities of people and bringing communities of people together. I can't do that in a one-on-one treatment room. So it is really about other people and their resources, meaning the places they have a business, the places they have communities of people, the places they just have like a space that I can show up at, whether it's an event, a business, or a family of, family gathering. Like, I welcome these opportunities. It's like some of my most favorite to just have these intimate conversations with people, because astrology changed my life. It changed the way I view my life, and it changes every day how I approach my life, because I'm much more aware of the energies going on, that I don't take them personally. I instead say, what might this be about? So if you have a day, for example, where you're exhausted and you haven't been able to nap, and you're fighting yourself to stay awake, why not just rest? Yes, that to-do list will always be there. But when we rest, the opportunity to get things off that list in quantum ways, or someone coming and, helping out and taking a few things off that list, increases. So when we try to do and react, we're not leaving a lot of room for these other opportunities to come in. And that was something I had to struggle with in this chapter, because financially, like, I want there to be a good financial flow of money coming in, but when you're in between careers, that's not going to be the case. So it's easy for me to revert to the way I used to do things. Oh, I will just treat patients right now. But that's not what's being asked of me. So I'm using that as an example for you. Where is that going on in your life? Where are you meant to step in? Where are you meant to be more courageous and bold with your expression? What are you passionate about? What does your heart care about? That is what the new moon in Leo wants for you. And this is when I say, since all 3 planets are involved in this new moon, you've got a lot of support coming in from multiple places to help. So I'm doing this now because I was hoping to get it done yesterday, but I didn't. So here it is. Like I said, I had unexpected visitors this week, and you can work on it today. Tomorrow, the moon will move out of Leo. So you have really another 24 hours to work with this energy. Write down what you notice. What is coming in easily? What is like causing more friction and complexity? What is really simple? Pay attention to those things. Okay, we have Chiron retrograding next week. So I do think that that's going to be important, because as we're making these big changes and moving into our new Earth world, we've got to, and we make these bold statements and we come out self-expressed. We've got to still look at like what part of us is wounded that doesn't show up, that is hiding, that is fearful. And not only that, I believe Chiron going retrograde is a little bit of a knock on the door for all of us, that we need to help each other right now. A lot of people are lost. That's the biggest thing I'm hearing from people, is they feel lost or confused or stuck. Those are the big things, because people are not very good at being in the void between worlds. I love it personally. I mean, there's a part of me that always would love the answers and this is the way to go. But what I've learned in the voids of my life is just how juicy and potent they are about these epiphanies that come in, and the truth of who I am, and me getting really clear about how I want to spend my time, my energy, and with who and with not, meaning like who will not be here. And trust me when I say, these last couple months I've been shown a lot in that department, and I feel that this Pluto opposition is giving me that permission to say, okay, it's time to really let go, as hard as that is, and as much as you wish it were different, or you wish it were this way or that way, at least in some relationships, it isn't. And so I can, spend my energy questioning and resenting something, or I can say, okay, it is what it is. It's time to move on. And I was taught whatever I was taught through that experience. I'm going to take the lessons and I'm going to move on. So I would love to hear from you. What is going on for you? What has been going on for you this week or even this month? Because like I said, that Uranus transition into Gemini is a big one. It's going to feel busier in the head. We're going to need to get into our bodies. If you're in the northern hemisphere, get to the ocean or a body of water during this heat. It'll help and soothe you and your system as you're making these big changes in your life, if that is in fact you. I think that's all I got for this one. So I will, I'll come back on for the full moon. I will likely also come on at the beginning of August just to talk about the astrology for the month. I am doing a little offering between now and the end of July, and it's just for the people who get this far into the video, that I'm doing a 20-minute reading on a sliding scale or donation-based basis. I'm just testing that out to see if people respond to that way of paying. So it would be a 20-minute reading. I'm honestly just going to go in and look at like what feels like the most important message to send to you or whoever is buying these readings. And, you can pay me whatever you can afford, whatever works for you for that 20-minute reading. What will be needed for that reading is your birth date, your birth time, and your birth location, as well as an email address I can send the reading to. And then I send them off usually within 7 days of payment. And you can pay whatever you like. With this particular offer, I'm only accepting payment through Zelle and Venmo, or cash if you're local, because of it being such a potentially low amount. I just don't want to be being charged fees for that. So anyways, if you want, take advantage. Like I said, it's the 25th, so we have till the 31st, another 6 days or so. So get in touch. You can email me at Kelly, Kelly, at kellydrury.com if you'd like to get on my schedule. I also do live readings. Those are, a bit more. So if you're looking to have a bit more of a deep dive into your natal chart and get a sense of what is hitting it right now, and that's usually like an hour and a half reading. We really get into it. So just be in touch if that's of interest to you. I also do solar return readings, which are your readings that we, tell us about from one birthday to the next, the themes that we're going to be dealing with in that year. That's basically half the cost of what the normal live reading is. And I also do those via recording. Any reading I do is done via recording so that it can be kept and referenced in the future. Okay. All right. I'm sending you all lots of love from my heart, my Leo heart. My ruling planet is in Leo. So I'm excited for like what I hope to be some bold movements in these next 6 months that are set from these new moon intentions. So you still have time. Get them down, pen to paper. I want to bring in more money. I want to see any blocks from my life easily lifted from me. Like that's like an example of an intention as it relates to the area that you're working on. All right. Happy new moon. Lots of love to you. Enjoy your summer.